From the day I held my son in my arms for the first time, I promised myself I would do anything to protect him. I thought that promise would be tested against the dangers of the outside world, accidents, illnesses, strangers. I never imagined that the real danger could be inside our home. More precisely, right beside him every day. My wife always told me I was too anxious, that I needed to relax, to trust her more as a mother. But when I looked into Liam's eyes, something told me that something very wrong was happening, and that I was the only one willing to see it. He was a curious, talkative, energetic little boy. But lately, when he came back from spending time with his mother, something changed. His gaze became distant, his speech faltered. I began to notice small signs that most people would ignore. A bruise hidden by a long-sleeved shirt, muffled crying coming from the bedroom when she thought I was distracted, the way he would shrink back when he heard footsteps. When I questioned him, I heard the same phrase repeated with cold firmness. Trust me. But how could I trust him when my instincts screamed that my son was suffering and no one wanted to see it? I wanted to be wrong. God knows how much I wanted to be wrong. But something inside me begged me to stop turning a blind eye. So silently, I bought a small, discreet camera and hid it in Liam's room. I told myself it was just to get this absurd idea out of my head, that I would watch the footage and feel ridiculous. But when I did, not only did I feel like a terrible father for not acting sooner, but I also saw my whole world crumble before my eyes. Before we continue, comment below which city and country you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. That night I watched the recording still burns in my memory as if it happened yesterday. I was alone in the office, my heart racing and my breath short. The video began with Liam playing on the bedroom floor, putting together a puzzle. He seemed calm until Rachel walked in. The transformation was immediate. My son's smile vanished, and he stood motionless, as if expecting something bad. She approached and, for no apparent reason, snatched the piece from his hand and shouted something the camera didn't clearly capture. I paused the video for a second. Was what I was seeing real? Was I exaggerating? I took a deep breath and kept watching. The next few minutes were worse than any nightmare I'd ever had. Rachel would tell him to shut up in a cutting voice, and when he didn't respond quickly enough, she'd shove him hard. Liam would fall, not crying, just lying there curled up, trying to disappear. It broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. My boy wasn't just being mistreated, he was being broken inside. And all this was happening while I was working in the next room, believing my wife was who she pretended to be. I felt a suffocating guilt, a silent pain that swallowed me whole. For years I heard that paternal instinct wasn't like maternal instinct, that mothers knew best, that they knew how to care. And I wanted to believe it. Rachel always seemed so confident, so self-assured. She smiled at everyone, knew what to say at school meetings, posted happy photos with Liam on social media. But behind that perfect facade, there was a cruel and deeply disturbed woman. And the worst part, she knew how to hide it in a way that would fool anyone. Except my son. And now, except me. I paused the video when she locked him in his room and turned off the light, even though he begged not to be alone. His voice saying, "Please, Mommy," tore me apart. I stood up from my chair, my hands trembling, and went straight to his room. He was asleep, breathing heavily, his face calm. It was almost impossible to believe that that little body had already been through so much. I touched his forehead and swore right then and there that I would never let anyone hurt my son again, not even his own mother. And that, from that moment on, everything would change. I didn't sleep that night. I sat beside Liam's bed watching him sleep, while my mind buzzed with questions. How did Rachel get to this point? Had she always been like this and I never noticed? Or had something inside her broken after his birth? I didn't know, but I knew I needed to act cautiously. Any misstep could put my son at even greater risk. And worse, she didn't even know that I knew. The charade continued, but inside me, Something had changed forever. The next morning I made coffee as if nothing had happened. Rachel came downstairs with her usual rehearsed smile, kissed me on the cheek and asked if I'd slept well. My stomach churned. I knew what she'd done, but still I had to smile back, pretend. Liam appeared soon after in his pajamas and came straight to my lap. He didn't look at his mother. That was a punch to the gut. I hugged him tightly, trying to silently send a message. Everything's okay now. Daddy's here. But inside, I was preparing for war. I spent that entire day on high alert. Rachel's every move was analyzed. Every interaction with Liam was watched with hawk-like eyes. She tried to keep up appearances, but I noticed the impatient glances, the curt gestures, the coldness disguised by sweet words. When I had to leave for an online meeting, I strategically positioned my phone to continue monitoring her through the camera. My heart only slowed down when Liam was with me. And that's when I realized something even crueler. He only felt safe when his mother wasn't around. That said it all. Later I called my sister, Clara. I've always had a close relationship with her, and deep down I knew she also suspected Rachel. When I told her about the images, she was silent for a while. Then, her voice breaking, she said she always felt something wasn't right. Daniel, you need to protect Liam. Now. That confirmed what I already knew, but hearing it from her brought even more urgency. I arranged with Clara that she would stay with Liam for the weekend. I needed time to think, and above all, to decide what to do next. Rachel didn't suspect a thing when I suggested Liam spend a few days with his aunt. On the contrary, she even seemed relieved. She said she needed some time. That infuriated me. What kind of mother needs a break from a 5-year-old? But once again I swallowed my anger. It wasn't time to act yet. When Liam went with Clara, my heart ached, but I also felt relieved. I knew he would be safe. I went home with my head spinning. I needed to organize the evidence, understand the legal implications, plan how to get him out of there without putting anyone at risk. Because now I had a very clear objective. That night, alone with Rachel, everything seemed like a macabre theater. She laughed at a TV program, commented on trivialities, and there I was, feeling like I was having dinner with a stranger. Or worse, with an enemy. Every time she said, "Our son," I wanted to scream, but I couldn't lose control. Not yet. I went upstairs to the bedroom and for the first time reviewed the older footage. I began to notice a pattern. Her behavior repeated itself whenever I was distracted, working, or out of the house. The truth is, it wasn't a momentary outburst. It was a routine of abuse. As the weekend approached, my plan began to take shape. The first thing I did was copy all the videos from the camera to an external hard drive. Then, I printed screenshots of the most obvious moments of abuse. I knew that a father's word wasn't always enough when it came to accusing a mother. I needed irrefutable proof. I spent hours organizing everything, labeling files, recording times. And with each image reviewed, my heart broke a little more. My son trusted me, and I had let this go on for too long. Now, I owed it to him. On Saturday morning, I left Rachel sleeping and went to Clara's house. Liam ran into my arms as soon as he saw me. It was as if he knew something was changing. We talked, we played, but I saw in his eyes a kind of tiredness that shouldn't exist in a child. When I carefully asked if he liked being with his mom, he hesitated. He looked at the floor and answered softly, "She yells at me a lot." My world stopped for a few seconds. It wasn't just the video. Now it was him, with simple words, confirming what I already knew. In the afternoon, I went to a police station specializing in crimes against children. I showed them the evidence, told them everything. The officer listened to me in silence, then asked to speak with a psychologist on the team. In less than an hour, the case was registered, and they started the process to secure a protective order. I knew the fight was only beginning, but leaving there with that document in my hands gave me some peace. For the first time in weeks, I felt I was doing the right thing. No more waiting, no more pretending, acting, and protecting those who truly mattered. When I got home that night, Rachel greeted me indifferently. She said she'd taken the opportunity to rest and catch up on some TV series. I observed her with different eyes. Every gesture, every word, seemed so artificial now, and yet she remained there, behaving as if nothing was out of the ordinary. It was frightening to realize how someone could live a lie so well. But what she didn't know was that I had already set everything in motion, and that at any moment that bubble of control she lived in would burst. And she wasn't prepared for that. The hardest part was holding back the urge to confront her right away, to show the evidence, to yell, to accuse. But I needed to think about Liam. Any rash action could compromise his safety, or even harm me legally. So I played the part. I pretended. I waited. And with every second of that waiting, I grew stronger. Because now I wasn't just the worried father, I was the protector. And I would do anything to ensure that my son's fragile smile would truly shine again. On Monday, everything happened faster than I imagined. The child welfare team, along with a court officer, knocked on our door in the early afternoon. Rachel, confused, opened the door smiling, as she always did when she wanted to appear the perfect wife. But the smile vanished as soon as she saw the documents in their hands. They informed her, bluntly, that they were there to ensure Liam's safety, based on reports and concrete evidence. She looked at me, paralyzed, and then for the first time I saw something I had never seen on her face: fear. Rachel tried to argue. She screamed, cried, pleaded. She said it was all a misunderstanding, that I was manipulating things, that someone wanted to destroy our family, but no one was swayed. The officer read her rights, explained the procedure, and made it clear that any attempt to contact Liam was forbidden. When she realized she no longer had control, she fell silent. She sat on the sofa and stared at the floor. I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. Not for her as a wife, but for the person she had become. And I also felt relief, because finally, my son was out of reach of her pain. That same day, I picked Liam up from Clara's house and explained in simple words that he would be staying with me for a while, and that everything would be all right. He just hugged me. It was a long, silent hug, full of things he couldn't yet express. Right there in that moment, I realized I didn't need certainties anymore. You just needed to keep doing what was right. I took him back home, or rather, to a new home, because I decided to move immediately. To start over, far from the memories, the fears, and the room where it all happened. With my sister's help, I quickly got everything organized. In a few days, we were in a new, smaller apartment, but with a light, clean energy. Liam stayed in the room next to mine, and I left the door open every night. Gradually, he started sleeping better. He didn't wake up screaming, he didn't wet the bed, he didn't hide. It was as if he was relearning how to live, and so was I. Each small progress he made was a sign that even with all the chaos, I had made the right choice. The hardest, but the rightest choice of my life. Rachel tried to contact me. She sent messages, called, showed up at Clara's house, but everything was documented and reported. The restraining order acted as a shield, but I knew she wouldn't give up so easily. Still, I was prepared. I wasn't afraid of her anymore, nor of the consequences, because the real fear was continuing to pretend everything was all right while my son suffered. And that fear, I had buried it forever. The first few days in the new house were a mix of silence and rebuilding. I tried to keep the routine light for Liam. We woke up early, had breakfast together, drew on the balcony, went to the park. But there were moments when he would stop in the middle of a game and stare into nothingness, as if the memory of something bad pulled him back. At those times, I would just sit beside him and wait, without rushing, because I learned that, with a hurt child, time needs to move slowly. Every gesture needs to be safe, predictable. Love for him now was synonymous with stability. It took me a few days to find a child psychologist I could trust. After many recommendations, I found Dr. Paula Martins. She was calm, firm, and right from the first meeting with Liam. I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. He spoke. He spoke little, it's true, but he answered, drew, and looked me in the eye. Paula explained to me that childhood trauma manifests itself in various ways, and that the process would be long, but possible. The important thing was that he was now in a safe environment, with someone who believed in him. That was like a relief in the form of words. During the sessions, Paula also gave me guidance. I needed to be more than just a protective father. I needed to be an example of calm, of listening, of patience. So I started adjusting my way of speaking, my routine, even my facial expressions. Everything now revolved around rebuilding Liam's trust in the world, and in me. Sometimes when I least expected it, he would come and say, "You're going to stay here with me, right?" And my heart would break and strengthen at the same time. Because yes, I would be there. Always. As the weeks passed, I realized that the nights weren't so tense anymore. Liam asked for stories before bed, told me about his day, and even laughed occasionally. Small victories whose value only I knew. With each laugh there was one less ghost. With each colorful drawing, one less shadow in his memories. And while he healed, I also rebuilt myself. Because deep down I had also suffered, in a different way, but no less intensely. The pain of discovering that the person you love hurts the one you love most is something no one should ever have to feel. Meanwhile, the legal process was underway. Rachel had hired lawyers and was trying to reverse the narrative. She alleged parental alienation, saying I was manipulating Liam against her. But the evidence was clear, the images spoke for themselves. And Dr. Paula's expert testimony further reinforced what we were trying to show, that there was a real victim, and that the child's silence had been the loudest cry for help. I remained firm, not out of revenge, but for justice. Because protecting my son was more than an instinct. It was now my purpose. The day of the hearing arrived like a punch to the gut. I already knew it wouldn't be easy, but being face to face with Rachel again brought a whirlwind of emotions. She was seated next to the lawyers, elegantly dressed, her face restrained in a victim's expression. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. She maintained that cold, almost defiant gaze, as if she still believed she had control of the situation. But there, before the judge, the social workers, the psychologist, the truth was about to be heard, and this time, she wouldn't be able to silence anyone. The judge listened attentively to the testimonies. Dr. Paula spoke firmly, describing the signs of trauma, the typical behaviors of a child living in constant fear. Selected excerpts from the videos were shown, not all of them, just enough to make the pattern of abuse clear. I watched Rachel as she watched the footage. For the first time, she trembled. That mask of control cracked, even if only for seconds. I saw her hands gripping the arm of the chair, her eyes welling up not with guilt, but with anger. She knew she had nowhere left to run. The truth was naked, raw, undeniable. My testimony came later. I recounted how I began to notice the changes in Liam, the silent signs that alerted me. I spoke about the guilt of not having noticed sooner, about the pain of seeing my son suffer without understanding why. He told the judge that he wasn't there to destroy anyone, but to protect someone, that everything I did was on instinct, out of love, and that even if it cost me sleepless nights, relationships, or stability, I would do it all again. Because what was at stake wasn't a fight between adults. It was the well-being of a child. At the end of the hearing, the judge was direct. He granted me temporary custody, with supervised visits for Rachel, provided she agreed to undergo psychological counseling. She stood motionless in shock. She refused to comment at the time. I knew the battle wasn't over yet, but that was a huge step. I left the courthouse with Liam in my arms, not quite understanding what had happened, but happy to be with him. And in that instant, looking at him, I realized that everything, every pain, every risk, every sleepless night, had been worth it, because he was safe. And that was all that mattered. In the following days, we began a new chapter. Clara's constant presence helped us, as did the support from Dr. Paula's team. We established a new, lighter routine, with a new school, playtime, and weekends at the park. I watched Liam blossom, open up, and laugh easily. And within me, something else was also blossoming. A timid but real hope that the future could be better, that he could grow up away from that cycle of pain. That being a father wasn't just about being present. It was about facing monsters even if they wore the face of someone you once loved. The healing process is never linear. There were days when Liam woke up smiling, full of energy, and others when even a loud noise was enough to make him shrink back and cry for no apparent reason. At those times, I would stop everything. I'd put work aside, cancel appointments, and simply sit on the floor with him. Sometimes he would talk. Other times he just wanted to be held. Over time I learned to read his signals, the silences, the downcast eyes, the way he held my hand tighter. It was as if he were saying, "Protect me again, Dad." And that's exactly what I did. The sessions with Dr. Paula continued, and with patience she helped Liam find the missing words. He began to recount small episodes, like the time he was pushed because he wouldn't be quiet, or when he had to eat alone in the dark. Each story was a new piece of the puzzle that we now had the courage to assemble. I listened to everything with a heavy heart, but without interrupting. The therapist taught me that he needed to speak in his own time, in his own way, and more importantly, that I needed to listen without promising the impossible, but guaranteeing the essential, that it would never happen again. Meanwhile, Rachel seemed to be sinking into her own poison. She began missing mandatory therapy sessions, refused supervised meetings with Liam, and claimed persecution and injustice. The social worker's reports were clear. She showed no signs of change. This only reinforced my conviction. I couldn't, in the name of a memory of past love, risk my son's present. She needed treatment, yes, but far away from us, because whoever hurts a child and denies that harm doesn't deserve anyone's trust, much less that of the person they should protect most. My sister Clara was essential during that phase. More than practical support, she was an emotional pillar. She took care of Liam when I needed to breathe, reminded me to eat, and made me laugh on the hardest days. And the most beautiful thing, she and Liam created a special bond. He started calling her Angel Aunt, and I understood why. Clara appeared when everything seemed lost and helped us find our way again. Seeing the two of them together gave me strength. It reminded me that family isn't just about blood, it's about presence, care, and true love, and she overflowed with that. Sometimes, after Liam fell asleep, I would still mentally replay everything that had happened. The guilt still crept in sometimes, but now it was different. It didn't paralyze me, it didn't consume me. I understood that I hadn't been negligent. I just took a while to understand what was happening. And when I did understand, I did what needed to be done. The hardest thing, the bravest thing, because to truly love is also to know when to say enough, even if it breaks your own heart. Months have passed since the day I first saw the images from the hidden camera. It feels like a different life. Today, Liam smiles more easily again. He's more talkative, curious, and has even made his first best friend at his new school. He likes to draw, to invent stories, and every night he asks me to tell him one before bed. Sometimes he chooses the characters. Other times he just says, Tell me one where the father saves the son. At those times my heart aches, because I know that even without understanding everything, he holds on to the memory of what he lived through, and, even more so, of what he survived. The court decided to keep custody permanently with me. Rachel lost visitation rights indefinitely until she proves, through medical reports and professional monitoring, that she is capable of living with her son without causing harm. She appealed several times, but without success. I didn't celebrate this. I didn't feel like a victory, because in truth, nobody wins in a story like this. What happened left deep scars on all of us. But at least now, they are no longer open. They are marks that time will soften, and Liam will grow up knowing he was protected. That, for me, is what matters most. Dr. Paula continues to monitor Liam, but today the sessions are lighter. They talk about feelings, fears, but also dreams. She said that he has shown resilience, that he is a child with a great capacity for rebuilding. And I believe her, because I see it every day when he runs down the hallway, when he laughs watching cartoons, when he calls me hero without even realizing it. In those moments, I take a deep breath and thank God for not ignoring my instinct, for listening to the silence, and for acting when there was still time. Life will never be exactly the same again, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've learned to live with more presence, more attention, more truth. I've understood that love isn't in pretty words, but in real actions, in being there when no one else is, in protecting even when it hurts. And that blindly trusting can sometimes be too high a risk, especially when it comes to those who depend on you most. Today I know that love is also vigilance. It's care. It's courage. If you ever go through something similar or feel that something is wrong, no matter how small it seems, listen. Listen with your heart, with your eyes, with your intuition. Don't wait for proof to protect those you love, because, in the end, we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be there and do whatever it takes. That's what saved my son. And in a way, it saved me too.